The Epilogue. Cara. "Do I have to do this?" Cole asked as he tucked his green button-down shirt in. Cara smiled as she turned from the mirror she had been checking her makeup in and crossed to him. She loved the green color on him. It brought out the green flecks in his brown eyes. "It's just a small party." She placed her hands on his chest and brushed a speck of lint from the right side. Jenny hasn't celebrated her birthday in years, so this is important to her. He rolled his eyes good-naturedly. "I know." Actually, he didn't. He'd never dated an abuser, but Cara had, and she'd slowly told him about her last relationship over the past few days. She appreciated that he was trying to understand. Jenny had overcome an even worse experience. She'd come to Fire Beach a little over a month ago after getting the courage to leave her abusive boyfriend. He hadn't allowed her to work or celebrate in years, but Cara and her friends had accepted Jenny into their fold. She now worked at Fire Dreams and was dating Jordan's brother Graham. Cara returned her hands to rest on Cole's muscular chest and flashed a teasing grin up at him. "Besides, we have a lot to celebrate, don't you think?" The last week had been a whirlwind, and one Cara was glad was over. The information she had given Nick had allowed him to administer an effective treatment for the people who had been infected at the pool. Everyone, including little Robbie, had recovered, and Malone, Bruce, and the terrorists were now behind bars. The remaining samples of the virus had been collected and returned to the military, where they were placed under lock and key. Due to her work, the military had agreed to allow Cara to finish her remaining contract in Fire Beach, and Cole had turned in his notice. He would have to go back for another few weeks to pack and get everything situated, but he was planning on making Fire Beach his new home. While he wasn't sure what he wanted to do yet, Cara knew that with his background in advertising, that he could find a job in town. He wound his arms around her waist and pulled her closer. "The only thing I need to celebrate is finding you." As he placed a soft kiss on her lips, she thought of how lucky she was, how lucky they both were. She had never thought she deserved a good man, having been put down by her father and others growing up. He had lost the woman he'd planned to marry to a drunk driver. They were both damaged, but God had brought them together to find healing. She had never believed in love developing so quickly, but as the thought of losing Cole tore her to pieces, she knew she was there. Summoning all her resolve, she gently pulled back, breaking the kiss. "Come on, we have to go or we're going to be late. We can continue this later." Cole let out a reluctant sigh, but the twinkling in his eyes told her he wasn't really upset. "I'm going to hold you to that, Miss Hunter." Smiling, Cara shook her head and led the way out to the car. A few minutes later, they pulled into the nearly full parking lot of Fire Dreams. Jordan and Graham had closed the restaurant early for Jenny's private party, but as their group of friends seemed to keep growing, it didn't surprise her to see so many cars. She pulled into an empty spot and turned off the car. After grabbing Jenny's present and locking the car, she took Cole's hand and smiled up at him. "Are you ready for this?" Though he'd been spending as much time as he could in Fire Beach the last few weeks, most of these people were still mostly strangers to him. She knew how hard it was for him to loosen up around people he didn't know well. "Just don't leave me alone, and I'll be fine." He gave her hand a gentle squeeze and pulled the door open. Lively conversation carried out as soon as they stepped inside. The corners of Cara's lips pulled up as she took in the group. Jenny and Graham sat at the head of the table. Jordan and Cassidy were next to them, followed by Bubba and Makenna. Across from Jordan and Cassidy were Tia and Brody. Nick, Ivy, and Al rounded out the group, leaving just 2 spaces for her and Cole. Jordan and Graham had already had to pull 3 tables together to accommodate everyone. If they got any bigger, and Cara had no doubt they would need to add a 4th table. Cole's grip on her hand tightened as she led the way toward Jenny. Happy belated birthday, friend. Cara held out the present and surrendered when Ginny threw her arms around her. Thank you, Cara. I'm so glad you guys could make it. She turned to Cole. I know I don't know you well, but I hear that you're staying in town, so hopefully we can remedy that. Yeah, sure, Cole said, with only a slight stutter. Cara had never seen Ginny so excited, but after hearing about her past, she could understand why. The girl had a lot of missed celebrations to catch up on. After handing off the gift, Cara and Cole took their seats. Cole next to Makenna, and Cara next to Al. Cara wondered what Al's story was. She didn't know the female officer well, but she was pretty, with her blonde hair and ski-sloped nose. Plus, Cara knew she was loyal to a fault. She had heard enough stories about her from Jordan to know that. Cara had no doubt a romance was in Al's future. Perhaps with Nick? Her eyes flicked between the two of them, but she couldn't really picture them together. Al's phone buzzed on the table, and she picked it up. Cara had assumed she was going to silence it, as the party was just beginning to get started, but instead her eyes widened, and her mouth fell open. Cara leaned over to whisper, Are you okay? Al shook her head. That was my mom. My sister is missing. The end. If you liked this story, please leave a review. Just a few words really helps. Want to find out what happened to Al's sister? Be sure to read Rescue My Heart, coming soon. And if you want to know more about Jenny's story, be sure to read Love on the Run. This has been Secrets and Suspense, a clean, romantic suspense, Men of Fire Beach series. Written by Lorana Hoopes. Copyright 2020. Narrated by Lorana Hoopes. Audio copyright 2020.